Hello, welcome back to the channel. An historic weekend because it is, of course, the coronation of King Charles III. What a wonderfully exciting day. Well, I'm hoping we can make a little bit of history today and catch a few fish, because I'm going to be honest, fished here a fortnight ago with Gary. Cracking day, really overcast, not a breath of wind and not one solitary piece of marine life to be seen, which was disappointing to say the least. But the weather's finally warmed up, and I mean finally, because it's now the 6th of May. When I got out the car there, the temperature dropped to 16 from 19, which at the minute, for anybody that lives on the northeast coast, feels positively tropical, because even 16, I think it's fair to say, is literally twice the temperature it's been probably for the last fortnight. We've just had a fortnight of easterly winds. It's been pretty miserable. But anyway, we're over on the west coast today, over in Cumbria. Target is rays, thornies hopefully, and the outside chance of a hound. Got a big spring tide today. The time is 4:10, low water is just after 7:30, so I'm going to fish 3 hours of the ebb, couple into the flood, and I'm hoping that, combined with a bit of dusk darkness, gives us a chance of my first smoothie of the year. But I've got with us some bluey, squid and some fresh crab that Gary kindly sorted out. Right, enough chit chat, let's get some baits in the water, see if we can pull something out. Okay, so gear today is the old trusty Ziplex HSTs. Got a pair of these, 13-foot 2 or 3, can't remember. These are teamed up with all of probably 80 quid's worth. It's one of the original Daiwa Saltis 20s. It's been magged, and I've got that loaded with 16-pound Sakuma Manta line. Mono, of course, and that's got an 80-pound shock leader, which is tied with a bimini twist. I'm fishing clean ground, so I like to use a bimini. If I was fishing rough ground with mono, I'd be using a spider's hitch, because if you get snagged over rough ground with mono using spider's hitch, the knot itself will just snap. But because a bimini is so strong and reliable, the issue is if you use it over rough ground and you get a fast hold, the knot is very unlikely to snap. But what will snap, and what the knot will find, is any sort of chink that your mono's picked up, and you're more likely to risk the chance of losing, 20, 70, 100 yards of mono or whatever. So clean ground, I like to use a bimini. I'm using mono today because we are fishing a very, very big spring tide, and if you're a regular viewer of the channel, firstly thanks very much, but if you are, you'll see that whenever, a lot of the times when Gary and I fish fast tidal venues, we like to use mono because it just helps you get whole bottom a little bit. You can cast a little bit up tide and just use the bar weir, shock leader and the mono to just help dig into the tide, and your rod tip will just sit nicely over. And then if you get a bite, you're looking for a big bounce back, or if a fish picks it up and runs with the tide, your rod will just arch over. So this sort of fishing, I like to use mono. This second rod's teamed up with what I think is a cracking little reel and really good value. It's a Pen Fathom, I think that's a Mark II. It's a 12 size, which I love. It's very, very similar to the Saltus 20 actually. And that's loaded with, that's actually got 20-pound tri-lean on. I was fishing somewhere slightly heavier ground. And basically I've just been too lazy and disorganised to change the mono. So I'm going to cast this up tide a little bit, and as I say, the mono, you can just use it almost in an up tide fashion to keep your gear firmly on the ground. It's always worth giving your line a bit of a pull before you cast, just to make sure none of the mono isn't wrapped around the rings, because there's one guarantee to get a crack off and to damage your rod. It's that. So let's get this one out. So what I'm doing, I'm only just taking up the slack. I'm not winding down hard to it, because all you do, if you wind down hard, you reduce the amount of line in the water, you narrow the curvature of the bow, and you give yourself less chance of holding bottom. So the more bend and stretch and bigger bow you've got in that line, the easier your gear will sit. The tide, the sinker will find its place, the tide will bend the mono, bend the rod, and you'll see when everything's just sitting nicely. As I say, I do want to maximise distance. Water's very coloured, so I don't want to be going too far in case there is a drop. I don't think there is. Right. I'm going to be using pulley rigs today. I'm not using a rotten bottom, again, as I say, because it's clean ground. I've got two variations of pulley, and I'm going to keep my pulleys very short, and the reason for that is, if there are any hounds about, it reduces your chance of getting a deep hook, because the fish picks it up, the hook length's shorter, it registers on the rod, and you can wind into the fish a lot quicker. Again, if you watch the channel regularly, you'll have seen probably a year ago, big fan of the knotless knot setup. That's a 1-0 Cox and Roll chino on the top. Being honest, I probably would have preferred a 2-0, possibly even a 3, but didn't have time. They're a very strong hook, and if there are any hounds, they've only got small mouths. That'll hold perfectly. That's just a long, regular mustard Viking 3-0 on the bottom. And when you're hound fishing, it often happens with rays as well. That bottom hook almost just acts as a bait holder, really, because 9 times out of 10 you'll get the hound on the top hook, and with it being the knotless knot, instead of a wrapped pennel, you'll just get an instant hook up on the hook length rather than any potential slippage. So sinker wise, as I say, a lot of tide. I'm using a 7-ounce gripper, and what I'm going to have on this rig with the knotless knot is a very small juicy bit of fresh crab, and on the second rig, my ray rig, also a pulley, a little bit longer, and I'm going to be using a combination of bluey and squid for this rod. And again, I'm putting a 7-ounce sinker on, but with this rig I'm not using a knotless knot system fishing for rays. I'm just simply using standard pennel, 4-roll mustard Viking Aberdeen on the bottom and a 2-0 on the top to hold it in place, because I'm going to be using slightly bigger baits, and I find just wrapping the pennel is absolutely fine for the rays. So distance wise, I'm probably going to chuck the pair of them as far as I can. As I say, the tide's ebbing. It's probably already ebbed nearly 10 yards even in just the time I've been talking to you, so I'm going to wade out, hit it far, because I want to make sure my baits are fishing in a reasonable depth. It's not a particularly deep venue, this, but it's always a gamble fishing this mark, because A, I've driven an hour and a half from Newcastle, and B, you might have seen on a video earlier I did last year, the weed can be absolutely horrific. Sometimes you fish here and there's nothing, sometimes you fish here and there's loads, so you're always taking that chance. So that's one of the other reasons I've chosen to use 2 rods, because if I am plagued with weed, what I'll do is I'll just fish with 1 rod and have the other one baited up and ready to go. So instead of dragging, inevitably the weed gets caught on the leader knot, instead of having to drag it up, pull 20 yards of line off, lose 10 minutes fishing time, I'll just pull it up the shore, put it on the stand, whack the other one out, deal with it, and then I've always got bait in the water. Just getting a little bit of an enquiry on the right hand rod, which is the rod that's got crab on it. Just let those develop for a second. Yeah, there's that right hand rod going a bit. This rod did have a couple of taps earlier. There is a little bit of weight on here. Yeah, I've got something on, which is good. I do love fishing with multipliers and mono. I don't know what it is, I really like it. Just take my time here, I'm not making any sudden movements because you never quite know what sort of hook hold you've got. And it is, yeah, the old faithful Mr. Dog. And he's done a first class job of wrapping that line right round his neck. He's not a bad sized doggy, to be fair, but he felt heavy. Or should I say, oh, gotta be careful with my arms there. Yeah, he felt heavy. What you can do with dogfish, if you're not already aware, are very squirmy little characters, and they've got sandpaper like skin. So what you can do, it's a bit tricky here because that upper circle hook's caught just behind his head, but if you can just pin the back of the head and the tail like that. Little male doggy, he's not a bad size example of a dogfish. People hate them, but to be honest, I don't mind catching them. A Catshark actually. But yeah, pretty little fish, member of the shark species, obviously not really the target quarry, but I'll take him. Let's get him back. Right, there you go, fella. He's away. It's always a nice sight to see the dorsal just disappearing and the little ripples underneath the water, especially on a lovely still evening like this. Right, let's get another bluey bait out this time. See if we can get that ray. Right, we've got about an hour left of the ebb. What an absolutely superb night. Right, so that bluey bait. So I've got a lovely, nice size, fresh crab here. He's well on. It's peeling very easily. Good test if a crab's ready to peel. Get the claw, and if you can squeeze and break the claw, it's usually a pretty good sign. I mean, generally you can tell by how soft the crab is. If you feel these parts in here, they'll more or less come off. So I have dispatched this fella. He's still got a few nervy twitches about him, but I put him out of his misery early on. What I'm going to do with a crab this size, fishing for hounds, believe it or not, I'll get 3 baits out of that quite comfortably. I'll cut the body into 3 and I'll bind a few legs on as well, so nothing goes to waste. So I'll just get, the beauty about crabs that are very well on, it is if you're lucky enough to be able to get your own supply, or if you've got a tackle shop or a crabber who can give you a regular supply, it is worth spending a bit of time over them. The problem is, sometimes they can take up more time than your girlfriend, which obviously doesn't go down very well. But that is the life of a sea angler. There's a lot of you will know. So get the legs. When they're well on, you can just peel them 2 at a time. And what I'll do is I'll probably put 2 legs and a claw on this one. So look at that, that is just perfect. I've removed the gills. Do I think it matters personally? No, I don't. Do fish remove the gills when they're out there? No, I like to remove them purely because they sit against a kind of like hard plasticky sort of bit of cartilage, so I just take that off purely so it doesn't risk masking the hook. Just my view. Other people might have their own views. If you do, I'd love to hear them. So cutting it probably 1/3, 2/3, and then I'm cutting it down the middle like that. Then what I'm doing, I'm getting me trusty bait needle, just gently push that through. Get me one of my claws, my elastic, which of course has already come undone. I'm just making a very neat little sausage like that. And I like to just put the legs where the kind of open exposed cut bit is on the crab, because it just means you can cover that bit up and it just gives you a few extra minutes of scent oozing out, rather than the bait hitting the water and losing a lot of it out of the kind of open side. And you can see straight away there, even though I've only got 1/3 of a crab and a claw and a couple of legs, granted it's a decent sized crab, that's actually not a bad sized bait. And if there are any hounds out there, they should have no problem finding that. So, up and down a few times, get it nice and tight, break it off. That'll just come off. Right, and there's me rig. Beauty about these knotless knot rigs is you can tie that top hook to the distance you want to dictate the size of the bait, and it also acts as a bait stop as well. So I'm going in thin end of that first, and I can just manoeuvre that round the bend of the hook. Just being careful not to make sure the hook comes out before the end of the bait. There we go. Push that over the knot of the hook just to give it a bit of stability. And I'm not nicking that hook through the bait or anything. That is just literally how I'm going to put that bait out. Perfect little fresh crab bait, fit for a hound. It will of course catch a ray if there are any rays out there. Hopefully there will be. So let's get this one out. Unlike fishing with braid where you don't really strike, you just wind in to set the hook because you don't want to pull the hook out. With monarch, as there will be a big bend, there'll be a lot of stretch. I do tighten up and then give it a strike, so if there is a fish I can just set that hook. Got some weight on here. Yep. Is in fact, must admit, mind it is only a small hound, but it is a hound nonetheless. Little male fish, you can tell by his claspers there. Whoop, he's just a babby, but again, even though it's foul hooked, it just goes to show that it is on that top circle. Yep, he's come out. So get that sand of him. He's a lively little fella, but I'm very, very pleased with that, I can tell you, because that's what I came for. Right, just help this fella get some air into his lungs, and off he goes. I am very, very happy about that. Only a little fish, but it's a good sign. Right. Let's get another crab blasted out there. Hopefully we can catch his grandad. Well, that was a turn up for the books, because I managed to snag a little codling. I was not expecting to see one of these over here, but certainly take it. And I've also snagged a bit of string or something like that as well on my sinker. There is a little bit of weed starting to show now. This tide's flooding. Don't know if you can see that. There's a tiny little crab right down his mouth there, but welcome sight all the same. It's species number 3, so nothing massive, but turned into a little bit of a mixed bag night. So let's get another crab bait out. Hopefully hit something as this tide starts to flood. Got a hell of a lot of slack line, so I've just looked round. My line was virtually on the beach here, which is one of two things. The tide's either starting to fully swing round, or fish has picked up and started swimming this way with the tide. So I'm just going to see if I can feel for the bite. Oh, a little bit of, yeah, there's a bit of movement there now. Again, there's so much pull here. It could be that my sinker's gone slightly loose. The tide's starting to pull it the other way. But I'll wind into that and just hope. There's weight on it. It's moving. There's definitely something on there. Now I'm hoping this time I'm actually, because my line's about, oh, someone's just come up on the surface there. Yeah, bit of activity. This is got yet another, an even bigger dogfish. Well, to be fair, actually, the dogfish go. That's not a bad one at all, I have to say. It is female fish, and even though he's not a hound, well, she's not a hound. And again, you can see there though, just nicking the side of the scissors, and that little top chinook. So for anyone unsure about how to use one of these disgorgers, very, very simple. Get your disgorger, get the bend of the hook like that, pull down so you've got the weight of the fish. And there you go. Straight out. Another dog, dog number 3, definitely the biggest of the day. It's getting dusky now, there's a cracking sunset behind us as you can see. Now you can see it. I'm hoping now the tide is starting to flood, it's going to bring some fish with it. As beautiful as that is, I'm really hoping that we're not going to have a repeat of last Saturday, which was pouring rain as soon as it got dark. What I was really hoping wouldn't happen has absolutely happened, because it is peeing down, and I mean properly peeing down. And I'm starting to realise this coat that I'm wearing isn't really designed for this sort of weather. And I've only got a t-shirt on underneath, and I've gone from being very comfortable to very uncomfortable. I think I'm going to get these wound in and get myself home, because pretty wet, I need to get to bed. I'm hosting a bit of a belated coronation party tomorrow, so I don't want to be too tired for that. So it hasn't been a bad day. First hound of the season, just a baby, but it is what I came to target, so success in some ways. You can't legislate for size, can you? That's always my excuse. Little codling, certainly wasn't expecting that beginning of May, but there you go, spring run. And I think I've had 3 or 4 doggies as well. One that was quite a reasonable size for a dogfish actually, so it's been not a bad little day. Up until the last 10 minutes, to be fair, the weather's been absolutely amazing, so it's been really enjoyable to come out. So as always, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment by all means. It's always good to hear from people. So until the next one, tight lines, keep fishing. We'll see you on the next one.